Hey guys, so the first lesson I wanted to do with you guys is in science. This is the one I am the most excited about. This is the subject that I love to teach in science in third grade. And it is SC.3.L.15.1. And remember the SC, excuse me, the SC means science, 3 is third grade, L means life science, so we're talking about living things. 15.1 tells us which standard that is, which is the one dealing with animal classification. So we're going to be talking about animals and classifying the animals into different categories or classifications based on their physical characteristics and their behaviors. So there's some words there that I just said that we need to unpack real quick. First of all, classify. That means to kind of compare and contrast these animals. What are some things that they have the same? What are some things that are different? And they're going to be grouped together into different groups based off of things that they have in common. So for example, you could talk about animals based off of habitat and things like that. But we're going to be basing this off of their physical characteristics and their behaviors. So now we need to talk about what those two things mean. Physical characteristics. We've actually talked about physical characteristics and reading. That is what did the character look like, things like that, describing the actual character. We did that at the beginning of the year. So here we're going to be talking, about different physical characteristics of different animals. So this would be things like, they have hair or fur? Because if they do, that's going to classify them as a mammal, right? Do they have scales? Because you have fish that have scales, and you have some reptiles that we consider having scaly skin, where you have more smooth-skinned animals like amphibians. Do they have gills? Well, of course, if it has gills, most of you probably already know this from previous years of school, that gills would classify, would describe a fish. Feathers. We know what comes with feathers. What kind of animal has feathers? A bird. And so that's going to be a big one to help you moving forward, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then warm or cold-blooded is another example. Warm-blooded animals are animals who can regulate their body's temperature themselves, where a cold-blooded animal does not have the ability to regulate their own temperature, so they must move to the shade or move out into the sun and things like that to regulate their temperature, or they go dormant, like into hibernation. And some animals do that for long periods of time depending on their habitat. So that is physical characteristics, and there's more we could add to that list, but that's just some examples to kind of give you an idea. This is what does the animal have on their body, or what do they look like, that we could categorize them by. So we could say animals that have fur versus animals that don't have fur, animals that have scales versus animals that don't have scales, and we could put animals into those two categories. So for example, if I were to give you, an alligator and a monkey, an alligator does not have hair or fur, a monkey does. So we could separate those into those two different categories. Behaviors are things that they do. Okay, so this isn't things that you can just automatically see when you look at them. This is going to be things that they do. So just like behaviors are things that you do. They could be good behaviors or bad behaviors. In this case, they're not good or bad. They're just what the animal does. Their instincts, what they do. So for example, do they raise and nurse their young? So if you have a pet dog, right, and your dog has puppies, does your dog have the puppies and then say, okay, go, and they walk off and leave the puppies alone? Or do they stay with the puppies, nurse it with their milk, lick them, take care of them, keep them safe? That's what this means, that like dogs, cats, things like that, they do raise and nurse their offspring. Offspring is another word we can talk about. Offspring, if you don't remember from previous science standards in previous grades, offspring is reproduction, right? So we just talked about plant reproduction. a plant has seeds, and when that seed gets put into a fertile ground, then that seed will grow to be the same kind of plant that it came from. Reproduction. This plant that came from the seed would be an offspring of the plant that the seed came from. So in this case, the puppies would be the offspring of the dog. So offspring just means the babies. So do they raise and nurse their young? Or like some animals, fish, they lay their eggs and then the eggs hatch and go off and do their thing. Snakes, same thing. The snake eggs, they get laid, they go off and do their thing. Turtle eggs, that's why you have to be really careful on Florida beaches sometimes. The turtle digs her hole, lays a whole bunch of eggs, buries it, and then she goes off on her way, and she may never see any of those baby turtles again. They will do perfectly fine on their own for the rest of their lives. So they do not raise and nurse their offspring. It's not a bad thing. It's just how they are made, how they work. Where they live, like can they live on land and in water? So we know, for example, that frogs can live in the land and the water because they start off life completely in the water. They develop their different body parts, their legs, and their tail goes away, and their gills eventually go away, and they become land creatures where they live on land. And you can have some frogs that can live in water their whole lives. So that would be a behavior, something they do. And then another one, a pretty simple one, is flight. Can they fly? So for example, when we get to talk about the different classifications and we talk about birds, that's one thing that we associate with birds. Birds can fly. Now, of course, there are exceptions to that rule. You have penguins, ostriches, and different kinds of birds that they are birds. They have every physical characteristic and behavior of a bird except for flight. They actually cannot fly because they just aren't built that way. Their adaptations tell them they don't fly. Excuse me, sorry, my allergies are really bad right now. And however, there is one exception to this rule of an animal that can fly and is not a bird. And it's one of my secret favorite animals. You could probably guess what it is. What kind of animal is not a bird, does not have feathers, but can fly? Think about that one. I'll give you a hint. They only come out at night. So you probably figured out I'm talking about a bat. So bats have fur. Bats give birth to their young, and they raise them and nurse them. And they don't lay eggs, they don't have feathers, but they do fly. So they are actually mammals, but they do share this one behavior as a bird. So there's just some examples of what physical characteristics are. That's the things you can see on the body of the animal. So like, for example, wings would be a physical characteristic, where flight would be a behavior. Flight is what they do. Physical characteristics are the different parts of their body, or basically that's it, different parts of their body. Do they have hair, scales, gills, what kind of skin do they have, and their blood, are they cold-blooded or warm-blooded? All right, so that's just a super quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. I do have some more words I need to go over with you guys, some more concepts. So words like vertebrates and invertebrates, which is where we're going to start off classifying first, and then we're going to get into animals that have live birth versus animals that lay eggs. Okay, so I do want to talk about what those mean. A vertebrate, think about the word vertebrae. If you've ever heard of the word vertebrae, that is a backbone. So you've got your vertebrae, which are those bones that, stack on top of each other, and they run from the bottom of your skull all the way down to where your hips are connected. And it's a backbone. That's all it is. Some animals have backbones. Some animals do not. Now, most of the land-dwelling animals, like when you just start naming off animals, you're going to think of vertebrates for the most part. Your lions, your tigers, your fish, your birds, Your snakes, lizards, all of those are going to be vertebrates. So, if you were to dissect the animal and you found a skeleton on the inside, it's a vertebrate. The exceptions to that would be animals who have exoskeletons like insects and spiders, and also you have some of your sea creatures like jellyfish. They don't have backbones, so they would be considered an invertebrate. So there's lots of different categories with that. So sometimes that gets tricky because some people will say like, well, fish don't have bones, they have cartilage, but it's still a skeleton. They still have the same structure as any other vertebrate. I mean, of course, it's different because it's a different shaped animal, but they are still a vertebrate. So most of your animals that are insects are a big one because they have their skeleton is not inside their body, it's on the outside. Right? Sounds super gross, but that's why when you step on a roach or a spider, you hear because you've just crushed their skeleton, which is their outside shell that protects their inside of their body. So that would be an invertebrate. So we're going to take this apart more and talk more about this. And like I said, my next lesson, it'll probably be shorter because we're going to really focus in on vertebrates and invertebrates and what those mean, what are some great examples of the two, and we'll have a little bit of discussion on comparing those two and classifying which ones go into which. And then we will go into live birth versus egg laying. We're not going to spend a long time on that one either. It's going to be a very short lesson because it's just kind of figuring out, like, do you realize which animals lay eggs or which animals don't? And then we're going to be doing mini lessons based off of each major classification of animals. So that's going to be a lesson on mammals, a lesson on birds, a lesson on reptiles, a lesson on amphibians, a lesson on fish, and a lesson on arthropods. And so each one of those is going to be a short lesson, and it will be over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we're going to create a big flow chart, and it's going to really help us. And I will create that flow chart as a document that I can send to your parents, and they can print it if they want, to really help you when it comes to classifying those animals, because it can get tricky. There's some animals that break the rules, but as long as we kind of know that there's very few of those, then we're pretty good to go there. So this is where we're going here. I don't really have a way of doing a check for understanding except for, so here's the deal, I am going to do it, but it's going to be different. You're going to have to reply in Dojo, okay, and send Miss Gall a message. I would like for you to see if you can come up with one physical characteristic and one behavior that are not on this board. I did not put them all. Like I said, wings. Wings aren't on this board. Don't put wings because I just said it, and I said it earlier. But that's an example of a physical characteristic that's not on this board. So you're going to try and come up with one physical characteristic and one behavior, something an animal does, that's not on this board. And you're going to send that to me through Dojo, and that will be our check for understanding, and I'll be checking that. And please feel free to send me messages about anything you want, even if it's just to say, hey, Miss Gall, if it's, just about life. So I know some of you had birthdays. You guys know I had my birthday. I'm 34 now. Anyway, so, let's talk, let's communicate. I miss you guys. I don't know how long it's going to be exactly until I see you. I'm really hoping April 16th we'll be back together. But, we just have to be smart and be careful and stay healthy. So we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that we're all back together again and healthy and in good shape when the time comes. So just please know that I miss you so much. And we're going to keep rolling with these lessons, and I can't wait to do more with you because I just miss you so much. Send me pictures if you want, if you can figure out how to send short videos. If you want to be cool and send your check for understanding answer as a short video so I can see your face too, feel free, guys. I miss you, and we're gonna make the best out of what's kind of a stinky situation. Tell me some fun stuff you're doing right now. Let's keep this going. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later. I will see you. I will be posting these links as I get these lessons out. But I'll tell you right now, it's 10:58. So I'm having to do these at night because I have loud boys and they won't let me do this during the day. Shh, don't tell them I said that. Especially my trash panda. So anyway, take care. Have a beautiful day. Make a memory. Read something. And like Miss Brody likes to say, do something kind. So have a good one, and I will see you soon. Bye.